Guys, the Bot Builder back for another video, and well, today is my 1 year anniversary. As you all know, a year ago I started my first ever video on this channel, which was Random Bot Builds episode 1, Duck. And well, ever since then, well, I've been making videos ever since, and honestly, it's just been a lot of great fun. And considering it is my 1 year anniversary, I feel, well, I should just let you down just a little trip down memory lane and talk to you about the history of Robot Wars Omega. From the humble beginnings, playing with Duplo, to the mini-bots, to more and more, to then actually doing a main series. And I think it'll just be a good bit of fun. So let's just start off, well, at the beginning. So here's how it all began. I was 3 years old, and well, I just saw Robot Wars. My dad was watching it on a channel called Bravo, and this fight in particular is one I remember very fondly. It was Series 3 Heat B, and it was Behemoth versus Pitbull. And well, from the perspective of a young child, Behemoth seems to be the favourite, being this big scoop, but just seeing, well, this dog-looking robot beat this machine, it just had me hooked. And at that time I was 3, and I already had a box of Lego Duplo, and after, well, watching it, well, I just started building robots out of Lego Duplo. And I did build quite a few. There were a couple I do remember making. Like, I remember I did build a Dietor replica. I also had this robot which was basically had this crane as a rep weapon as well. I can't remember what it was quite called, but I remember that doing particularly well. And it also made a robot which was based on a dragon called Dragon. But unfortunately, I don't have any of the Duplo robots here anymore, because, well, I gave the Duplo away. And I gave it away when I was around 7. Because when I was 7, I got 2 things that, well, practically nearly changed my life forever. This was around year 2, and I believe it was on my 7th birthday. I basically just opened it up, and I saw the mini-bot arena. Yeah, my mini-bot arena isn't in the best condition. But for the time, it was brilliant. I absolutely loved it. Floor flipper worked. And the pit worked. And that's kind of all I wanted, really. And not only that, but I also got my mum's old Lego. Right here. I haven't used up all of it. And my way of keeping things isn't the best, but I still use this Lego from time to time, even today. But back then, this is, well, what I had. I had all my Lego all in this box, and I just kept building robots out of it. Another thing that was cool was that the arena already came with 4 mini-bots. Granted, these mini-bots have seen better days. Dominator 2's axe tip fell off. Wild Thing's wheel's a bit battered. Chaos 2's got some chip paint, and Plunderbird 5's completely missing the claw. But back when they were in, well, seemingly mint condition, that was great. And I was really happy with it. And so I just did these tournaments with just these 4 mini-bots and, well, my small Lego robots. I don't remember much about these, except for the fact that I do remember Dominator 2 were quite the dominant machine. Winning a lot of events, but they were never actually full series. I just did random little mini tournaments, but I do remember Dominator 2 did dominate quite a fair bit. And over time, my collection of mini-bots expanded with Panic Attack and Tornado, before expanding even further and further and further, and well, basically got a decent set of mini-bots. And this was kind of what I like to call the mini-bot days. The set also did come with a Hypnodisc and Chaos 2, but these were too big. to fight with the little mini bots. So I made them house bots, calling them Hypnodisc and Chaos 2 Omega. Yeah, the first time I actually ever used the Omega word in a Robot Wars related thing. But the minibot days didn't quite last forever, and this is when I essentially just started expanding. And this was essentially when I did begin to retire the mini-bots, because my robots were just getting bigger and bigger. Here is White Illusion, a robot that is now retired. Another one, which is my attempt at Ace from Robo War. Who else is there? I also made the Morgue, my old mini Morgue. I'll just get Metal Morgue to compare it. I mean, just look at that for comparison. I haven't fully gotten to the pullback sizes just yet, but because, well, I just enjoyed making these card robots quite big. Another one is Zero, who used to have a flipper. A9132. And of course, the legendary Mr. Lacey. But with them, as well as, well, a whole lot of these, I just sort of, well, just played around with them. And I thought, you know what? I've gotten so many robots, I might actually have enough to do a series. And that was when I tried to do a series. Now, I don't remember a whole lot about many of my attempts, but I do remember my first attempt. And my first attempt was that I was trying to do a big series with 96 robots with 12 heats in each, but for some reason I didn't pre-plan it. And I never finished it. And after like the 9th heat, the robots were just getting bad, and it just wasn't good. Like a boxing toy which fell over all the time reached a heat final. Just to show you the levels of bad. But then I got a Kinder Egg toy, and I saw this, which I thought, you know what, that's kind of like Typhoon. And that was when my second attempt began, which I called Robot Wars Series 8, because obviously Robot Wars Series 7 was the most recent series at the time when I started doing this, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to continue the series in my own way. But then again, I never actually finished it. But for each well-failed attempt, the robots just keep getting better and better, and eventually things like my old A9132 were becoming obsolete compared to, well, say something like Lightning. As you can see, believe it or not, this was becoming obsolete, and this was becoming the new. And this was when I thought, okay, fine, maybe a big series wouldn't work, but what about a series that used the German Robot Wars format? And that was when the first ever pre-series, back in year 6, all the way back in year 6, began. It still used a mini-bot arena, but it had 12 robots in it, using the German Robot Wars format, and this was when Series 1 began. And what you're looking at right now is the winner of the first ever series of Robot Wars Omega pre-Series 1, was won by Lightning. And as you can see here, this isn't the exact same Lightning I showed off in my Retired Robots video. This was Lightning 2.0. And it was a good enough model for the time. It was a solid wedge. It was a lot lower to the ground than it is now, and it could self-right if I just did that. And I had a lot of fun playing with it. And this was the first series where I actually did start to use pullbacks. And I do remember a lot about this series. There were only like 3 episodes to it, 2 heats and a grand final, and Lightning had a good run. In fact, you know what, I'm just going to talk about Lightning's entire run here. I'll discuss every champion's complete run. And, well, Lightning, in their first ever battle, fought Hypnodisc. Another robot, a Lego flipper called Turbo were here, but we'll get onto Turbo in a bit. But basically, Lightning didn't do much in the battle as Turbo flipped Hypnodisc out the arena. So that was when Lightning moved on to round 2 to fight Horoscope, who got for a lucky first round after Stinger eliminated Frostbite, which is the precursor to Ice Pick, basically. But Lightning beat Horoscope after, well, basically pushing him out of the arena like that. So Lightning were in the grand finals, and in the grand final eliminator, they fought Biohazard, who unfortunately I don't have here with me, because Biohazard are at my dad's house. But Biohazard, they were the McDonald's Biohazard toy, if you've seen that. It works well, it made lots of grand finals, but I just retired it because it just didn't really look like the real life Biohazard. But Lightning did beat them after pushing them down the pit, and this was when Lightning fought Chaos 2, and this is the same Chaos 2 I used way back when, and I got it way back then with this arena. I mean, Hypnodisc, I got, this is my second Hypnodisc because the old one broke. But this is the same Chaos 2 I've been using ever since I first got this arena. And, well, Lightning and Chaos 2 fought. It was a great battle, but in the end, Lightning won. So, Lightning then went into Series 2 as seeded 2. And in the first round, because Series 2 had 5 heats of 6, and all the heats were in the Series 4 format, and there was a Losers Annihilator between all the losers. Between all the Heat finalists. But surprisingly, Lightning didn't make the Heat finals. They beat R2-D2 in the first round, with help from Frostbite. But in the second round, there was an upset as they fought Firestorm, who were newcomers at the time. This was a Lego Firestorm I had back when. It was like a red wedge with two 2x4 yellow Lego bricks at the back and a sort of thing which worked as a front hinge flipper, and that was able to beat Lightning after flipping them around and got them out of the arena. And like that, well, the Series 1 champs were gone already, out in the second round of Heat A, which was a major shock. So, but Lightning did come back for Series 3, hoping to regain their title, but sadly, no redemption arc here, as they took on Supernova 4, who were a long-time veteran, and they were seeded at that point. They were seeded 6, I believe, because they won the Losers Heat in Series 2 and got to the Grand Finals before being eliminated by Equinox, another robot we'll have quite a fair bit to talk about later on. But they beat Lightning after just out-wedging them, and eventually got them down the pit. But fortunately for Lightning, they did have a redemption arc in pre-Series 4, when the first round, they took on Draven and Killer Carrot 2. Draven was seeded 10, I believe, for this. But Lightning were able to beat them, as well as Killer Carrot, who couldn't really do much to Lightning either. And that led to Lightning going into the Heat semis of Series 4, because each Heat had the Third World Championship Heat format, and there were 4 of them, so there were 48 robots, where they fought Steel Sandwich, and Lightning won that as well. And they even did have a rematch with Chaos 2 in the Heat finals, where Lightning came out on top. Although Lightning's fortune was cut a bit too short, as in the grand finals they took on probably my best Rambot at the time, Bad Attitude, who basically rammed them and slammed them out the arena. But it was nice to see Lightning end the first ever pre-series champions end their career with, well, a grand final placement, a third place finish, and well, now they're retired. But you never know, I might bring back Lightning to the Robot Wars Omega Arena. I mean, I am bringing back Supernova to the Robot Wars Omega Arena, as I do have plans to make Supernova. But Lightning, for now, can enjoy their retirement. So now let's go on to Series 2. Now, pre-Series 2 was a fun ride. I've already mentioned the format. There were 30 robots competing, and there were 6 robots in each heat. And there were 5 heats, and they all had the Series 4 heat format, where the winners go into a grand final, which had the Series 4 heat format with a third place playoff, and the heat losers, the Heat runners-up, would go into a Annihilator, a 5-way Annihilator. And the winner of Series 2 was Equinox, probably one of my most powerful flippers back in the day. As you can see here, it was a simple wedge, but it had a cocktail stick powering the weapon. And it had a lot of power in the flipper. And in the first round, they fought Yoda with help of Cabrakan. Yoda was a simple Hot Wheels car, and Equinox dealt with them quite nicely, flipping them out of the arena. They didn't flip themselves out, don't worry. And in the next round, they then took on the Dutch flipper Gravity. This was my old Gravity model. Really doesn't compare, does it? But Equinox and Gravity, two very strong flippers at the time, but Equinox did win. Before they then fought Cabrakan in the Heat Final, which was my attempt at making Cabrakan from Roman Robots, which they won. And then they were in the Grand Finals, and there they were. They took out, they didn't take out Lego Fast, that was someone else. They took out Supernova 4 in the first round, before disposing of Chaos 2 after flipping them out of the arena. And then they took on Cyber Spinner, a robot that still competes this day in the Grand Finals, and they won. Now, Equinox did return for Series 3, where they fought this robot called Deep Impact, which was a replica of Impact from Master Race Robot Wars. I unfortunately couldn't find them, but they did fight them and won, which led to them taking on Atomic in the Heat Finals. This is my old first attempt at Atomic. Here is the new Atomic, just for comparison. Yeah. Massive difference. But Equinox did fight Atomic, and they won, before beating... I believe they beat Biohazard in the next round after that, who obviously I don't have with me, which then led to them taking on Bad Attitude in the next round, and they beat Bad Attitude quite convincingly, before taking on Chaos 2 and Equinox Chaos 2 and Turbo in the Grand Finals, where they were eliminated first after Chaos 2 flipped them out the arena. And well, Equinox did return for Series 4, but unfortunately, I don't remember a whole lot about their Series 4 performance, apart from the fact that they got to the Heat Finals and lost to Biohazard after basically doing that. And that was the end of Equinox. Or was it? Because what if I told you that Equinox still competes to this day with their spiritual successor? Yeah, what if I told you that Equinox's spiritual successor is a robot you've already seen in my videos. They are a fan favourite, and they are competing in Series 2. Yeah, say hello to Equinox's brother, Liftoff. Yeah, Liftoff. Technically a two-time grand finalist. Because they are the sequel to Equinox. And you're gonna see Liftoff. They aren't as powerful, but they are just an overall improved design. They aren't over the top powerful, meaning they won't be able to flip themselves out of the arena. They can self-right a lot better, and they're much more heavily armored. And they're just overall better machine. But they are the sequel to Equinox, and they are going to be competing in Series 2. So can they, reclaim the title? Can Team Equinox reclaim their title? Well, we'll just have to find out. But now let's move on to the champ of Series 3. Now, sadly, I don't have the champion of Series 3 with me here. Although I can say who they are. They were a robot called Turbo. And they were a little Lego flipper. And it was a full-bodied flipper in the similar vein to Holchem from Holgon 94 series. And they did very well. Although sadly, they are no more because they use their parts to making other robots. But we still have the memory of them, and I might remake them for the middleweight championships at some point. Not for next year's middleweight championships, but maybe the year after that. But they have had an interesting run, as they've been competing all the way since Series 1. In their first fight, they beat Hypnodisc after, well, flipping him out of the arena. But then they fought Stinger. This is the same Stinger I've been using all the way back then. And Stinger, despite knocking the wedge off, Turbo was still able to get in underneath them and flip them out. But eventually their run was cut short by Chaos 2, who, well, made light work of them, flipping them out of the arena. And they didn't beat Biohazard in the third place playoff either. So they ended with a 4th place finish. Maybe a tad bit lucky to get past Stinger, but seeded 4th nonetheless. They returned for the next series. I can't quite remember who they beat in the first round, but I do know they beat IG88 in the Heat semi-finals. IG88 were a very, very deadly spinner back then. But they did have a run-in with Cyber Spinner, the eventual runners-up of Series 2, and they got absolutely trounced. Smashed apart, the wedge fell off, the wheels came off, they were beaten. The 4th seeds were in the losers' heat. And give credit to them, they did come second in the losers' heat, but they crashed out to the eventual winner of the heat, Supernova 4, whose lower ground clearance they just took control of them and eventually dumped them down the pit. And that was the end of Turbo's performance in Series 2. So, they were an alright machine. Not the best, but not the worst. Like with a heat final, but they did have a heat final and they did come 4th. So they were a bit fluky, but they're still an all-star nonetheless. But not even I could predict how well they would have done in Series 3. Because Series 3 was when Turbo went from a pretty decent machine to a legend. As Series 3, the format of Series 3 was that there were 10 heats of 4, and it was just a simple head-to-head battle, the heat final. And the 10 heat winners will then go into the grand finals, which was a massive little bracket where it had 5 head-to-head battles where the winners of each will go into the semi-finals, but the losers will go into the losers melee, which is a big 5-way last robot standing. Then the 6 remaining robots will then fight it out in just 3 head-to-head fights, where the winners of each will then go into the grand final, which was 1 3-way battle. And Turbo dominated Series 3. In the first round, they took out the Revolutionist, which was a veteran since Series 1, with relative ease, flipping them out of the arena. Before fighting Dozer in the heat final, who was a pretty strong flipper in their own right, and who recently beat Sucker Punch, yes, as in that Sucker Punch that competes in the middleweights, and won. And then in the grand finals, they took on Draven in the first round. Draven coming off the heels of an incredibly lucky victory over Cabrakan in the heat final. After Cabrakan tried to push them down the pit, but they drove in. Before they then took on Vlad the Impaler. This is what Vlad, I did use. It is indeed the Battle Basher. 2 parts of it is missing, which is quite a shame. If I could re-find all the parts, I will revive them for the middleweights, because they are middleweight size, but they fought Vlad the Impaler, and they won after flipping them clean out the arena. And then they fought Chaos 2 and Equinox, in probably one of the luckiest grand final wins ever. In that, well, Chaos 2 flipped Equinox out the arena. They flipped them out the arena, but their back was overturned like that. And Turbo came in behind and flipped them out. And that was how Turbo won Series 3. And they did come back in Series 4, but with a completely new build. A Clusterbots, which didn't really help them in the end, as it did lead to their downfall, unfortunately. But in the first round, they did have an impressive first round victory, eliminating newcomers Ironall 6 and veterans Chainsaw Massacre, flipping them both out of the arena. Just look at my Ironall. Look, just look at the comparison. Wow. But then they fought M4, which was a pusher, and it is M4 from Robo War. And M4 slammed them and broke both of the cluster bots. They were done for. And, well, that was the end of Turbo. They went from becoming, well, achieving legendary status by winning Series 3 to just, well, being another Heat semi-finalist dropout. Sad shame, really. But now, let's move on to pre-Series 4, as I show you a robot that still competes to this day. Cyber Spinner. Oh yes, Cyber Spinner. They're still one of the most destructive robots I have. They are such a powerful full-body spinner, and this robot is competing in Series 2, hoping to, well, reclaim their Series championship, because well, their last series was Series 4. But I'll get into that in a bit. Because Cyber Spinner are just brutal. They're all they are is that they're just a massive, heavy-hitting, full-body spinner, and considering how light some of the robots were back then, it could very easily whack machines out of the arena. Now, Series 4 had a format, had 48 robots split into 4 heats, and it had the Third World Championship format for each heat. So it'll be 4 3-way melees, where the winners of each will go into the heat semi-finals, then a heat final, and then the 4 heat winners will go into the grand final. But Cyber Spinner's story doesn't begin in Series 4, as they debuted in Series 2. And in Series 2, I can't remember who they beat in the first round, but I do know who they beat in the second round, and that was M4. After basically causing some damage to them, and eventually knocking them clean out the arena. Before eliminating the 4th seed's Turbo, after, well, completely breaking them and smashing them. They then destroyed Firestorm in the next round, the Lego Firestorm. Well, again, just completely smashing them apart. Before, well, basically destroying Biohazard in the next round, winning out on a judge's decision. They looked set to winning Series 2, but Equinox got in underneath them and flipped them out of the arena in one of the quickest grand finals I remember doing. I believe Equinox just came with one flip in onto them, flipped them over, and then just flipped them out. But Cyber Spinner returned for Series 3. They returned for Series 3. And they had a great Series 3 performance. In their first round, they beat IG-88, another fellow spinner, after completely knocking them out the arena, before taking on Hubba Bubba, who basically shared the same fate. Now, Hubba Bubba, they used to be a full-body grabber, but the grabber broke in half, so it's just got some gnashing jaws now. But they basically beat Hubba Bubba. And then they were in the grand finals, where they fought Panic Attack in the first round. And Cyber Spinner won. This was the old card Panic Attack I had, not the pullback, and they beat Panic Attack. But sadly, this is where their Series 3 run comes to an end in the semi-finals, as they fought Chaos 2, who, well, flipped them over, and they were done for. And that's a weakness Cyber Spinner still shares to this day, is their lack of a Shreemac. But Cyber Spinner did come 5th in the 4th place playoff, so they returned for Series 4 as seeded 5th. And, oh boy, their Series 4 performance was impressive. In the first round, they eliminated Spike Shield 2 and Hogwild, named after Hogwild 94, in the first round, eliminating them both, before fighting a Lego robot called Dante, which was based on the Robo War robot, and they ripped them in half. Yeah, Jesus, Cyber Spinner. Before taking on M4 in a rematch heat final, which Cyber Spinner won. So that just leaves them in the grand finals, where they beat Biohazard in the rematch, before taking on Bad Attitude in the grand finals. And this was a very impressive performance by Cyber Spinner, because normally Bad Attitude beats Cyber Spinner. But Cyber Spinner just smashed them and eventually just knocked them out the arena. Bad Attitude were one of my best Rambots back in the day, basically making 2 grand finals in their only 2 series, but Cyber Spinner were able to beat them and, well, just finally become a Series 4 champion. They didn't appear for Pre-Series 5 for reasons I'll get into, but they are back. They are going to be back for Series 2 of Robot Wars Omega, and, well, can they defend their title? Because honestly, with the amount of flippers, I don't think so, but it'll be great to see if Cyber Spinner can defend their title, and it's the reason why I hold them in such high regards. They are still one of my most deadliest full-body spinners. But now, let's go on to the dead period. Now, the reason I call this the dead period is because, well, this was just when everything was dead. Now, there were many attempts to do a Pre-Series 5 around that time period, with Cyber Spinner as seeded 1 and all that. This was when I did get my Panic Attack pullback, so I was hoping to use that. I also made a new Turbo. Veterans Typhoon were now in their 5th variation, which is the exact same one I used back when I was doing Series 8. Atomic got a new flipper, as you can see. But I just never really got around to doing it. I did the first 4 heats, but then I stopped for some reason. And I just sort of, well, really just lost interest in doing fan made Robot Wars for a bit. And that was all the way up until Robot Wars. No, Robot Wars already came back by this time period. Yeah, I sort of just lost interest in doing any fan made Robot Wars series for a bit. That was until when Vote Saxon 07 made his Apollo How to Builds, which you could see here. This is my first ever Apollo. And here they are. And I was just thinking, wow, I really like my Apollo replica, but it would just be a waste to just, well, never use them. So that was when we got into another attempt phase, where, well, I just did many attempts to, well, bring my Fan Made Robot Wars series back. And this was when we get another phase of robots that are now retired. Like, here's Hammer Time, a robot that I made during this period, which had Sir Kilolot's hammer as a weapon. My old Behemoth, right here. It was orange for some reason. Who else do we have? And my old Push to Exit. But I never really finished any of these. And, well, eventually I just kept building and building and building and building, and then Series 10 came out, and that was when I built, using Retrotastics instructions, this, which is Eruption. And it looks very different to the Eruption I use today, which didn't use any instructions at all. So now I had these. I also used Votesaxon 07's instructions to build Carbide. I learned about the Donald Thump stuff. I decided to build more and more cardboard robots. Antway Anarchy came out, which inspired me to make Hit. And, well, eventually, I just had so many robots, I was just like, oh, I have 30 pretty high-quality machines. Might as well do a series out of them. And that was when it came back. Because the thing is, the first 4 pre-series, to call them Robot Wars Omega is a bit of a lie, because they didn't have the Omega name. But this, I also said bye-bye to my mini-bot arena. It was getting old, and I replaced it with the arena I use today. This, the Hexbug Arena. And combine that with, well, getting a Housebot Matilda, was when the frameworks for Series 1, now known as Series 0, of Robot Wars Omega began. And who won Series 0? Well, it was Donald Thump, who won Series 0, arm of their very powerful vertical spinner. And they still compete to this day. In fact, they are seeded 2 for Series 1. And honestly, they are highly expected to do very well in Series 2. In fact, they are runners-up of the pilot episode, runners-up of Series 1, and they're just an overall really good machine. Now, Series 1 had 30 robots in it. No, Series 0, Robot Wars Omega pre-Series 5, also known as Series 0, had, well, 30 robots in it, and it used the Series 10 format, except there was a 5 robot rumble instead of 10. Which was between the Heat finalists. And Donald Thump had a very interesting Grand Finalist run. This was back when they didn't have a Shremek. And for a Grand Finalist, believe it or not, they lost out in the first round. They were in a fight with Demolition Evo... No, Original Demolition, back when the scoop was only 1 layer thick. Demolition Evo's made from the old Demolition, and they didn't have a Shremek. And Chaos 2. And it was actually Demolition who eliminated Donald Thump after flipping him over. But Donald Thump came through that and beat Nuts 2, who I forgot to grab for this, in the redemption rounds. Before then they met Tough as Nails, who they completely bashed and smashed and, well, broke off on the arms. And then they fought Chaos 2 in the Heat finals, which Chaos 2 won. Chaos 2 used to do a lot better than they do now in my series. Being a multiple-time Grand Finalist, they're quite a consistent machine. But Donald Thump's run looked grim, but it wasn't over, as the 5 Robot Rumble happened, which contained Apollo, Eruption, Firestorm, and Panic Attack, who has seemed to have gone missing for some reason. Wait. Excuse me for 1 sec. Oh, wait, no, I found them. There you are, you bugger. And this was when I did use Firestorm, but I didn't stick the lip on just yet. And Donald Thump won that. And there they were in the Grand Finals, where in the first round of the Grand Finals, they met Carbide, who I've now replaced with Cobalt. I don't have Carbide with me here. They're also at my dad's. And Rapid, which Donald Thump smashed Rapid out the arena and flipped Carbide, getting them stuck. But Rapid did get through the redemption rounds and fought Donald Thump, who eliminated them in 11 seconds. Yeah, Rapid needed some improvements after that, and that was when I made their flipper corrugated, which did help them beat Donald Thump in the end. And in the finals, Donald Thump fought Hit and won in probably one of the best fights I remember doing. And, well, after Series 1, or Series 0, I did have plans to make a Series 2, which was a sequel to that. I even made housebots for it. Because, well, I had just Matilda. This is when I made Rhino and Virus. But this was before Virus got drunk. I actually started the whole drunk Virus meme, because I was doing just an off-air tournament, where Virus just was failing to grab stuff, and that was when I started calling it drunk, and this sort of expanded into them being silly in the US Championships, and, well, that's how it stuck. And Rhino being angry, because one time he got flipped out of the arena and started ramming the arena. And this Series 2 became the Series 1 that you see today. And that's the history of Robot Wars Omega. From Duplo to mini-bots, to, well, mini-bot arena, to, well, Lego flippers, packets of Hubba Bubba, Hot Wheels cars, before we're now where we are today. And honestly, I can't thank you guys enough. And so what are our plans for the future then? Well, remember how I replaced the mini-bot arena with this? You know, I think there might be a new arena placement soon. But I'll leave that for that. But until then, no. Tune in later today for the Robot Wars Omega Robot Rumble. I've recorded it and it was a lot of fun. But until then, the Bot Builder, out.